Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this webinar that we're going to be having this evening. As much as possible, we're going to optimize time, hence starting right 7 o'clock on the dot, Nigerian time, of course. Of course, we have people joining us from all over the world. I don't know what their time is, but wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So we start now. So I'm quickly going to introduce myself. I'll share quickly my profile. So this is a quick summary of my profile. My name is Powell Hart. I'm a passionate advocate for marginalized communities in Africa. One of the things I do is that I'm the founder of Kalijah Root Foundation, which enables me channel my expertise in leadership, ICT, and capacity building. It enables me to drive sustainable development initiative. I also have a strong educational background in IT management, finance, along with expertise in international consulting, which I've done for over a decade. I hold a master's degree in management information system. I have an MBA, and I'm also a global leader. So my unwavering commitment and inspirational speaking makes me a driving force for positive change, and I'm actively participate in programs that uplift communities and empower individuals across Africa. So basically, I'm interested in giving as much as I can till I can give no more. So that's enough about me. Let's jump into the matter of the day. Right. So today, or this evening, we're going to be talking about building a high-performing team. Building a high-performing team. So when you hear the word team, what comes to mind? What comes to mind? What is a team? I know there are different acronyms. Some people say team is an acronym for together everyone achieves more. You know, some people say team is a group of people who come together to work to achieve a set goal and objective. So there are different definitions. So we're going to look at that definition. But before we start, we have a quick outline we're going to run through. So we're going to look at the introduction. We're going to understand what a high-performing team is. We're going to look at characteristics of a high-performing team. We're going to look at the power of togetherness. Why build a team? The power of togetherness. We're going to look at the kind of energy it generates, which is usually synergy. Common types of high-performance teams, brain teasers. We're going to also look at what are the roles of a high-performing team, building blocks, stages of team development. We're also going to look at how to build and develop a high-performing team, and we're going to have our conclusion. So as much as possible, we're going to do this within 15 minutes. So introduction. The ability to build and sustain high-performing teams is more crucial now than ever. Folks, I must inform you that we are living in changing times. We're living in the 21st century. We're living in a peculiar time, a time of creativity, a time of freedom, a time of technological advancement, and a time of several skills. And in no other time than now is it important for us to work with people in order to achieve our set goals and objectives. In today's technological world, you have people they call digital nomads. So a digital nomad can live anywhere in the world and work remotely. You know, since the advent of COVID-19, people have started working remotely. which has necessitated the need for different skills, new skills, and people working in different locations. So hence the need for collaboration, for teamwork. So with the challenges and complexities of the modern workplace, a blend of innovation, agility, and cohesive collaboration that only truly exceptional teams can provide. So what is a high-performing team? Before I start, I'd like to ask a question from all the people online. What is the difference between a group and a team? Or do you think they are the same thing? A group and a team. Who wants to attempt that?
I would say that a group is a bunch of people who are working. They may be working together or individually, but they're still working in a group. And a team is a group of people working towards a specific goal.
Fantastic. Fantastic. If we weren't virtual, I'd have asked for them to give you a round of applause. That was a very good attempt. So he said a group, or a team rather, is a group of people working towards a specific goal, which is very apt. So let me give you an example. When he says a team, a group is a bunch of people who work in different areas. I'll give you an example. In Nigeria, we have what we call the Dangote Group. So in Dangote Group, it comprises of Dangote Cement, Dangote Sugar, Dangote Spaghetti. I hope I didn't get you hungry. Dangote Refinery, all sorts. So they all comprise as Dangote Group. Why are they a group? They're a group because they're after different goals and different objectives, different targets. Why a team? A team is a group of people who work together to achieve a common goal, the same goal. And in the process of trying to achieve that, they build what we call team spirit. So as we go further, we will elaborate more. So basically, a high-performing team is a group of individuals who work collaboratively. So we need to take note of the word collaboratively. You know, we live in a very collaborative time, I must mention. Before now, the norm was competition. So competition was as much as possible how we could, sideline or defeat our opponents or our colleagues in the same industry. But because of the way the world is changing today, we encourage more of collaboration, because when we collaborate, we go farther, we achieve more, and we get more results, and it's more sustainable. So a high-performing team is a group of individuals who work collaboratively to achieve a shared goal, and they work efficiently and effectively. Efficiently and effectively. That's another word I'd have loved for us to define, but because of our time, I'm just going to quickly define it. In today's world, it is vital that people work both efficiently and effectively. What is efficiency? Efficiency is your ability as a team member or as a team to deliver results with the most minimum resources. So when I say resource, I just don't limit it to material or monetary terms. I also mean it could be time. For example, an efficient team is a team that would deliver results that was going to take a week to achieve, would deliver it in like 3 days or 4 days. Then you are time efficient. While an effective team is a team that delivers at the expected time. So such teams exhibit several key characteristics that set them apart from other groups. So I'm going to give you a quick example of those kind of teams. But before we do that, who or what can be a team? Who or what can be a team? So a team could be, it could be a sports team, for example, or it could be an organization, which is like a business organization, or it could even be a country, These are entities that were capable of creating teams to achieve results in. So for sports, I'll give you an example. In 2003, if I'm correct, Arsenal, which I think is the greatest football team in the world, which I happen to be a fan of, by the way, we won the Premier League. The Premier League with the team we call the Invincibles. So why was this team an outstanding team? The Invincibles were outstanding because, number one, they never lost a match throughout the whole season. And they worked together effectively and efficiently. Everyone knew everyone's strength and weakness in order to create opportunities and manage the threats. So in management, when we talk about SWOT analysis, which is SWOT, is an acronym for strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And for your information, your strengths and weaknesses are internal things, while your opportunities and threats are external factors. So your strength and weakness as a team, then they knew who could run fastest. They knew who could run the slowest. They knew who had the hottest shot. So by understanding everyone's area of strength and weakness, we are able to hone our strengths and as much as possible starve our weaknesses. And at the same time, when we are able to manage these things, we are able to manage our opportunities, we're able to take advantage of our opportunities and as much as possible manage our threats. So that is for an example of a high-performing sports team. So we also have another one. We have organizations like Google or Facebook, all these tech companies which have taken over, in the workplace. Tech companies, they do something that's very interesting. In one of my research, I was able to discover that they engage in what they call the divergent and the convergent way of thinking. For example, a company like Apple, when they're trying to create a new product or implement a new idea, as much as possible, they gather those people that they call think tanks. So they gather them, everyone is present, everyone is participating, bringing in different ideas, no matter how stupid it sounds, bring in your ideas. And it goes through a process that they filter it and get the most potent of them. So in that situation, they create so many products in that process and everyone is carried along, communication is effective. And in that kind of system, succession won't be a problem because everyone understands the conversation, everyone knows what is happening. And for countries, I'll give you an example of a country. In 1946, just after the Second World War, Japan before then used to be known as a military power. And after the war, of course, they got defeated by the United States by the dropping of the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And having lost the war and lost their reputation as a military power in the world, Japan decided to reinvent itself by becoming an economic power, an economic hub. I mean, this is a country that had to build from the ashes, basically. And in other words, how did they manage to build this? They collaborated within. So you had a collaboration between the people of Japan, you had a collaboration between people and the government and organizations. In Japan, they introduced what they call lifetime employment, which is what they call Shushinkoyo in Japanese, I believe. So by doing that, workers realized that they had job security and every worker is a shareholder in the organization. So basically, they understood that whatever they give in is what they get out. So because they are stakeholders and shareholders in the organization, they make sure they give in their best so that in the end, they can get their best. So those are some examples. So folks, as we move on, these are some characteristics of high-performing teams. And they include a high-performing team has a clear goal and have roles for everyone. So every team member understands the objectives of their individual roles within the team. They have a strong leadership, effective leadership that guides, supports, motivates the team. Open communication. Of course, communication is key in any organization or in any structure or in any team. So there needs to be transparent and honest communication that folks can trust and that will encourage collaboration. So there needs to be mutual trust and respect. Team members trust and respect each other and creating a positive and supportive environment. diverse skill and perspective. So when we say diverse skill and perspective, there's a perfect mix. There's a mix of skill, experience that enriches the team's problem-solving capability. And this reminds me of Nigeria as our nation, which is mixed with different people, different tribes, you know, and different experiences. And I think it's an opportunity for us to have a cocktail of ideas and a cocktail of system that works effectively. So we also have commitment and accountability, flexibility and adaptability, and a team that is open to continuous improvement. Of course, there's a popular saying that says the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. So a highly performing team should also be open to that. A commitment to ongoing learning and development, both individually and as a team. And also, because it's a collection of different people that makes up this team, there's always going to be conflict. And as much as possible, an effective team is a team that can manage their conflict and focus on the goal. So effective conflict resolution is important in that kind of team. And there's a shared vision and value that helps to align the team's vision and purpose. So I'm going to be talking about the building blocks, which is the stages of team development or the stages of team building. So in every team, there are 4 stages. The first one we have is the forming stage. So the forming stage is the stage where the team members get acquainted and get to meet each other and define their roles. So the forming stage is the initial stage where everyone is still new, still checking everyone out, checking each other out to know who is who. So it's in that stage that people start to align with each other. They look for those who are like them. They start to form alliances basically. So after the forming stage, we have what we call the storming stage. So the storming stage is the stage where their differences begin to show in the activities, where people start to realize that, this guy is not like me, this guy is from so place, their differences in personality, their work approach and everything, their tribes, they begin to say, this one is not from our place. So that's the storming stage. And also is a stage of conflict. And in that stage, that is if I would say that's the most critical part of team building, the storming stage. It needs to be managed effectively because sadly, not every team makes it from the storming stage. A lot of marriages are still in the storming stage. A lot of countries are still in the storming stage who are made up of different people. They're still stuck there. So be careful as much as possible not to get stuck in the storming stage. So in this stage, how you manage it is by good conflict management. You understand that we are trying to achieve the same thing. With communication, we'll be able to understand each other better. So that's the storming stage. Then the next stage is the norming stage. So a team that's successfully gone through the storming stage, that has been able to put their differences behind, will evolve into the norming stage. Sorry, I'm not going to go back to the storming stage. It's very important we dwell on this storming stage for a bit. I'll give you another example. A country like Rwanda, for example. Rwanda was a country that had, tribal differences, tribal wars that led to their genocide. So upon the leadership of Paul Kagame, which is the current president of Rwanda, he abolished certain things that were, holding them back in the storming stage. So things like tribe in Rwanda, there's no tribe in Rwanda anymore. It's now you're Rwandese. That is it. And they've realized that has helped them build bridges. It has helped them identify what they have in common beyond what separates them. So by the time you're able to evolve beyond those pettiness, then you've overcome the storming stage. Then you enter into the norming stage. So the team resolves conflicts, establishes ground rules, and develops a sense of collaboration in the norming stage. That, as the word implies, norming, things begin to normalize, and the team can now establish this rules and ground rules and conflict resolution strategies and develop a sense of collaboration and work together towards achieving the goal. So having gone through the norming stage, we have the performing stage. So the performing stage is the stage where the team is functioning cohesively. They are functioning with a sense of solidarity. They are working together with, at a high level with so much focus and commitment to the goal, to the objective. So that is it. You have forming, storming, norming, and performing. And after the performing, in some areas, you have the adjoining stage. The adjoining stage is the ability for the team to replicate what it has done in another project or in another organization, as the case were. So the power of togetherness. Why do we build a team? I'm going to run through this because of time. We build a team because we're trying to have a mix. In marketing, we talk about the perfect mix. The perfect mix is trying to have the right ingredients, like cooking a soup, trying to put the right amount of ingredients to make a perfect cocktail of people that can deliver. So why do we build a team? We build a team because we want results above all. Building a team isn't just about having company. It's about unlocking strategic advantage. Okay? When you have a team, you accomplish more. There's diversity of thoughts. So there's not just one way of thinking things. It's more of a contingency where you have a variety of ideas. Then you have increased efficiency and it enhances morale. So common types of high performance teams. So we have the work teams, there are the virtual teams, there are the project teams, which is a very temporary team that is just for the duration of the project. You have the management team, which is the overseeing team that oversees what the subordinates are doing. Then you have the parallel teams. So we'll just explain it briefly before we proceed. So the work team are dedicated to specific functions such as production and customer service. So these ones are there to, perform a specific function. So you have virtual teams. Virtual teams enable organizations to assemble the best talent regardless of location, especially in today's world. So these teams collaborate towards common goals across different locations, time zones, and organizational boundaries. So especially for those that work remotely, they are part of these teams. Digital nomads are part of these teams. I wish I was a digital nomad. I would have lived a more interesting life. So now we have project teams. Like I said earlier, project teams are temporary groups formed to complete specific projects within a set, time frame. Then we have the management team, which we said are responsible for guiding subordinate teams and overseeing overall business performance. Then we have the parallel teams. Parallel teams are formed to address specific functions that formal organizational structures cannot handle. So these teams typically include members from various work units or roles and operate alongside the formal structure. So what are the roles of the high-performing team? So in a high-performing team, like we said earlier, it's a mix. So you also need to identify the kind of people you have in your team. So of course, the team is made up of different people with different areas of strength, like I mentioned when I gave Arsenal Football Club as an example. So we have the implementers. You need to identify who is an implementer. So also you can research later. There's what they call the Belbin's theory. So it talks about putting the right people in the right position in order to get the best results. So you have implementers, you have shapers, you have completers / finishers. So implementers, these are individuals that excel. These are individuals that excel at, at translating the team's idea into manageable tasks and priorities. These are people that can get it done. They can implement, they can act, they can transform an intangible idea into a tangible reality. So we have the shapers. Shapers are those who are task leaders. Their dynamic role focused on organizing goals and overcoming obstacles. Yeah. Then we have the completers / the finishers. So the finishers, this role is characterized by meticulousness, attention to details, and the ability to meet deadlines. Don't forget that most of the tasks that we have are time bound, and these people will help achieve that in due time. So we also have coordinators, team workers, resource investigators, etc. So folks, as I wind down, so we have a few benefits of building a high performance team for your business or for whatever you're doing. Like we, for example, we're trying to provide sustainable and better lives for people in the rural areas and disadvantaged communities in Africa. And we have a collection of people that we work together in order to achieve this. We're trying to introduce renewable energy and all those things to them to make their lives better, especially in the rural areas. So the benefits are, it helps to improve productivity and efficiency. It helps to increase trust and engagement with work. Business vision is actualized. Successful achievement of high priority objectives and maintaining high performance. In conclusion, building a high performance team is an investment that yields significant return. By understanding the importance of teamwork, the team begins to develop and foster a collaborative mentality, which can help to empower the people there and deliver remarkable results. So folks, teamwork is what we need the most in this 21st century, as a country, as an organization, and even as an individual or as a family. So on that note, folks, thank you for having me. I tried to summarize as much as I can. Hope it made sense to you, and you've gotten a little bit of understanding of the subject matter. Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure, and we'll yield in for the next speaker to come, which is Dami. Dami will go next from now till the next 15 minutes. All right, Dami, I'll leave it for you to take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, Powell, for that. I definitely learned a lot about teamwork. Many things to take to take forward. Thanks for that. Hi, everyone. My name is Dami Doherty. I am currently a senior finance manager at Google. I've had a fairly long finance career. I've done a lot in the space. My bread and butter is I'm at core a financial analyst. I live and breathe all aspects of finance, including being a financial analyst for making investment decisions and also financial operations. So today I'll be covering one of my favorite topics, and I think it's very useful for everyone, not just for finance people. Even if you own a business, you work for a business, you're an investor, understanding financial statements is going to be one of the most important things you need in your toolkit. It's going to be 15 minutes long, so please do not expect that you're going to walk away from this being a guru and can do all the financial modeling, none of that. I think it's an overview so that you can get a taste. And because if I were to talk about this topic in full, it would take me more than 3 days, and we will only have covered like 10% of the subject. So it's an overview, but I'm hoping that at least with this overview, you feel like, hey, now I get it when people talk about these statements. What's the balance sheet? What's the income statement? Why it matters of that, and you can invest. So, without further ado, I think I'm sharing my screen. All right. So to start with, I think the way I like to always talk about financial statements so that everybody gets is, imagine the last time you went to the doctor's office, or it could be to a hospital, whatever the case may be. I think many people have done this, but just imagine the very last time you did that. The very first thing I think most hospitals or medical practitioners, when you walk in, is they take your, they're going to say, hey, let's check your temperature. Let's measure your blood pressure. Let's and I kind of think of the financial statements of a company in that way, in that they are looking to see your vitals, like the important pieces of data that tells us where you are as an individual. So the company is the patient, the financial statements are your vitals, right? And you cannot go through life without knowing those things about yourself, because you might want to know if you're about to go have a heart attack. You might want to know if you have a lot of cholesterol, or you might want to know if, there's something going on with the level of your activity, you don't work out enough, whatever the case may be. Think about financial statements like that. Every company that exists in the world today, whether it's a private company, it's a small business, it's a large public company, you always need to know your vitals, because that helps you make decisions around where you are, or rather it gives you visibility about where you are today, and it helps you make informed decisions about where you need to be at as a company and any changes you might need to make. So essentially, the summary of this slide is that these are super important. It's not just for the accountants in your company, it's not just for the gurus who are the auditors. It's for, even if you work in marketing, even if you are working in operations, even if you're on one of Powell's teams, like, that he described in companies, you need some understanding of what the financial statements are, because they tell you about where the company is from a performance perspective and a health perspective, and how profitable the business is, and the level of risk that exists within your business. And one of the, I think, coolest part of financial statements is that you start to not just see the numbers, you are able to start comparing performance of a business to its peers in the industry. And say, all right, so where are we kind of behind, and where are we kind of ahead, and why? And so it's a very, as I said, not to beat the dead horse, super important. Everybody needs to know this stuff. And I think it's very interesting to know it as well. So having said all that as a preamble, let's get into the actual financial statements. One of the many people already know this, and if you already know this, I apologize if it's too basic, but there are three major financial statements. I will start with my my least favorite and end with my most favorite one. But the first one is the income statement, which is my least favorite. I'll explain to you why. But it's super important. There's a reason why it exists, and many business owners are familiar with that. Like profit and loss statement is another name for an income statement. I'll talk about that, then talk about the balance sheet, which is a bit neutral. I don't hate it, I don't love it, but it's an important statement that it definitely tells you a slice of information that's important. But then we'll end with the cash flow statement, which is my most favorite statement. It is everything it really is the lifeblood of the company, and it's important to know what's going on there. So I'll talk about each of these three and give you a taste of, hey, when I look at this, this type of statement, what should I be taking away from it? Again, this is absolutely not a full lecture on financial statement. There's so much more behind this. I encourage everybody to spend time doing this, like researching after this call. But again, I'll give you an overview. So again, I'll start with my least favorite. I say it's my least favorite, but some people love the income statement. So I that's a personal opinion about it being my least favorite. So the income statement, think of it as a very simple way to understand in the core business we do, how well are we in actually performing the core business. So for example, if you have a business where you sell electronics, for example, you sell electronics. In the business of selling electronics, how well are you doing? So that means how much revenue comes in over a period of time. Like how much does it cost you to actually sell that revenue? So if, for example, your revenue is you sell 100 million naira worth of electronics, but the cost of acquiring those electronics to sell, maybe from the original manufacturers, is $90 million. Like that is what you start to see on your income statement. How much money are we gaining as a business from the core business of what we do, and what are expenses in being able to perform that business? So it's going to show, and this is really tiny on the right hand side, but it's going to show your revenue. That's money coming in, the cost of that revenue, how much does it cost us to acquire that revenue, and it's going to show things like a gross profit. So we take what we earn versus what it takes to earn that, and we have a gross profit, which is for every single unit of a product, how much money do I earn from selling that? So that's the gross profit. Then it's also going to show in general what are your fixed costs as a business. So that means You need to pay your employees, you need to pay for marketing, maybe you're doing Facebook ads, maybe you're paying for rent, you're renting in a building, all of that, all of those expenses come under your operation expenses in your income statement, because it says, all right, it takes us, we have to first buy the equipment and sell it, so that's a cost, but then we also need to pay a bunch of people and satisfy all our expenses. That's also another element that we factor in. And that gets you to the very important number of your net income. Again, I'm breezing through this, but the point is you get that net income, or what people call net profit. So it's saying every time I need to sell a product as a business owner, do I actually make money off of it when I account for all the expenses that has to go into it? And of course, there are things around taxes, interest, payments, and all of that. There are all kinds of interesting ratios and analysis that people do with the income statement. But the most important takeaway from this statement, as anybody looking at it, forget about all the hula baloo, bells and whistles, is about every time I have to sell this product, do I make money off of it? Or am I losing money every time I have to sell this product? And you'll be surprised. Actually, maybe you might not be surprised. A lot of companies actually lose money from selling their products. Uber is a classic example. Uber lost so much money in the first, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years of operations because they were actively investing in their expenses, which is giving driver incentives, things like that. So they were net profit negative for a very long time and only flipped to be positive in the US, at least I think some years ago. So this tells you, are we making money from the actual thing we sell? So that's the beginning of the financial statements. It gives you all that information, okay? And by the way, all the statements are all connected. So they tell you a different part of the business, right? Kind of similar to your vitals, like you're doing x-ray to see what your heart is doing, you're doing a temperature check, all of that. So similarly, statements tell you a different type of metric around how you're doing as a business. So that's the income statement. Again, the income statement is saying how profitable is the actual exercise of selling, of buying and selling that we do. But then we go to the balance sheet, which is a completely different view. It's essentially just saying today, what does this business own? And how is it financing that? And so it's a point in time snapshot of the business. So balance sheets are usually prepared like maybe at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year. It's a snapshot to say, at this point, at this date, what assets does the business currently own? And who does the business owe? And what equity exists? So think about it. The simplest way you can probably think about this is to say, if I want to start a business today, or let's say I want to start a business of renting out a house or something like that. And I say, I need to go buy a house, obviously, so I can rent it out. That's the business. I want to be a renter. Oh, sorry, a landlord, land person, landlady, make that neutral. And so it costs, right now it's on the market for 150 million naira, right? That's the cost of the house. So I want to start that business today, but I only have, let's say 50 million naira to get into it. I'm going to get the remaining 100 million from the bank. So I do that. So I have my 50 million naira, my equity is called the shareholders' equity, owner's equity 50. Then there's 100, which is going to be a liability. You're going to go get debt from the bank. That's your liability. And you get those two and you go buy the assets, which is what the balance sheet shows you. So after that, if I did my balance sheet after doing that as a business, what you would see on the assets would be the $150 million naira worth of house. Like I bought the house, is worth 150, but to be able to finance that, my equity was 50. It would be under the equity area, shareholders' equity, and the liability, which is the debt what you had to owe, is 100. And so the role for balance sheets is that your assets always have to be equal to your liabilities plus your equity. It always has to. So when people say, oh, the balance sheet is not balanced, all of that, just know that it's essentially saying, how can you own something that's worth a certain value? And when you now think of how you got to that thing, it doesn't add up. Like if you own something, it has to be, some of it was from your money and some of it's other people's money. That's how you own it, right? So that's essentially the idea of the balance sheet. Balance sheets are great because it really tells you about the liquidity of the company. So under the balance sheet, you see things like cash, you see things like accounts receivable, a bunch of your customers are owing you money. You want to kind of know how much of that is. Some companies have huge accounts receivables. Yes, I'm profitable I'm making money, profitable, but everybody's owing me. Nobody has paid me yet. So this is why the income statement doesn't tell you the full picture. You could start seeing some of that in the balance sheet to say, oh, wow, why is there such a huge accounts receivable for this business? And it also tells you things like your fixed assets. If you have a bunch of machinery, you have a bunch of land, balance sheet tells you all of that information, okay? And the liability side, similarly in nature, like if you owe a lot of companies, like if I need to, as a financial analyst, I need to review a company and I see, oh, wow, almost all of your, on the equity and liability side, there's so many liabilities. You owe long-term debts, you owe like, there are all kinds of liabilities. So it means that the debt to equity ratio of the business is very high. That's a very risky business. There's a lot of liability in the business. It tells you that, ooh, let's make sure we understand why that is the case. And that's an extremely risky business model. But some companies are that's their model. They have a lot of liabilities compared to the equity. I think it's risky, but it depends on the strategy. But the point is, you need to know all of this to tell you about just the general liquidity health of the business. Liquidity being the how easy is it going to be for this business to run into a cash crunch? Like, is there enough liquidity in terms of cash and assets to support the business and all the profits or loss it's making? So that is the biggest takeaway from balance sheet. Again, so much more here. I encourage you to read more on this sheet, but as I said, I don't hate it, I don't love it, but I think it's an important statement to have and be familiar with. And the very last one, which is my favorite, and I'll spend a bit of time talking about this. I know I have 3-4 minutes left. But the cash flow statement I think it's underloved. Doesn't get enough attention as it should because it doesn't have the profit. Everybody loves talking about profitability. Oh, we're profitable. Oh, we're this. Oh, we have a bunch of assets, all of this stuff. But cash flow it tells you about kind of the movements of cash and how buoyant this company is. Because the worst thing, and I had a professor in business school that always said this. I think he said, no matter how profitable you are, the worst thing as a business is to run out of cash, because that will completely destroy your business. So the classical scenario of businesses doing this is, let's say you are a business that, again, looking at the income statement, you sell a profitable product. Like it costs you maybe, I'll use simple numbers this time. It costs you maybe like 100 naira to acquire something. I can sell it for 5,000 naira, right? So wow, like on paper, profitability is out, like it's great, like it's a super profitable business. But guess what you do with that business? Then all your customers are all like, let's say, huge corporations that only pay people every 6 months. Like we only pay you 6 months after. So what happens is that you still have bills to pay with your employees. All of these people need to get paid. So you're profitable, but you cannot actually get cash for what you sell until 6 months. But guess what? In 6 months, you're bankrupt. In 6 months, everybody has left because that is why the cash flow is important, because it actually tells you how the cash moves through the business. So there are 3 sections of the cash flow statement, such as cash flow from operating activities. This is how you're working, like working capital changes, such as, do we have changes in accounts receivables? Are people paying us? Are we seeing increases in payments to us? And also accounts payables, like when we need to pay our vendors, is this something that reduces our cash flow or increases our cash flow? And other type of elements to see at the end of the cycle, are we increasing the amount of cash we have or reducing the amount of cash we have? Are we burning cash, for example? Startups have a number called cash burn. They look at over time, like how much cash does it take to actually like keep the business afloat? There's a burn rate. It's something that you probably have heard from startup method terminology. And there's also the element of cash flow from investing activities and cash flow from financing activities. I'll talk briefly about the difference between those 2 things. Cash flow from investing activities is essentially saying, when you look at if you go back to the balance sheet briefly and you see the asset side, every time you need to buy an asset like a truck, a tractor, or something that's a fixed asset, a long-term investment, how much of it are you doing? How much of your cash that you own are you spending on those kinds of things to acquire assets? And it's different from the second section, from the last section, which is cash flow from financing activities. So Is this a company that's constantly raising equity? Maybe you're doing an IPO, or you're issuing dividends, or you are raising debt. Like, so it's essentially how much cash are we getting from actual financing activities? So the actual act of creating or spending cash from that perspective. And so these are the three elements. I'm looking at the cash flow statements for sure. Like, there's a lot of insight you can get from that. So for example, if we see that anytime I see cash, and this is a very interesting thing I've seen as a financial analyst, when you're looking at the company's health, you see that maybe you see a lot of cash in the balance. Like, you've seen that, hey, it's a profitable business, they make a lot of money, like the margins are high. Oh, you look at the balance sheet, oh, there's a lot of cash in their bank. Wow, they must be doing well. Then you go look at the cash flow statement, then you see, oh, you see cash flow from the operating activities, which is actually the primary way they make money, like from the business of buying and selling. You see, it's actually quite low. You're like, oh, so where is all the cash in the bank coming from? They see investing activities. Maybe they're not really investing. They're not buying a bunch of trucks or anything. So where's all this cash coming? They now see, oh, financing activities. They've just been raising a bunch of debts, for example. Like, that's the cash in the bank. Like, this business is not that healthy. Like, it's profitable, but they actually are not making a lot of money that from the actual operations of the business. They have to keep on financing to be able to pay their bills and things like that. So this is why the cash flow statement is important. I think it's a good full understanding of the business health once you factor in the cash flow, right? So I'll try and do a summary, because I think that's most of what I had, because again, it's a very short overview. But one, financial statements are super duper important. I really cannot reiterate this. And maybe I'm biased because this is my bread and butter every day, but it's not just for accountants. It's not just for your auditors. It's not just for the people that do this every day. I do think everyday people, as you're an investor, you're buying stocks in companies, you're making decisions about starting businesses. You might even own your own small business. It's important to kind of see why these statements matter and how you can interpret the statements to make business decisions. As I said, don't just look at one element, which is maybe profitability. Everybody loves profitability. Look at multiple things to be able to make those decisions. And I know I'm a bit over time, but Powell did take some of my time, so I don't feel bad. But thanks everyone. Again, happy to be here, and good luck in learning more about financial statements after this. All right.
Hello. Hello. Okay. Good evening. Yeah. A brief introduction.
Technical.
Yeah. My name is Tekena Abibo. I'm from River State. I have a background in electrical and computer engineering. Am I being seen? Can you guys see me? So I have a background in electrical and computer engineering. I studied at the University of Houston. I briefly studied in Georgia Southern University, Armstrong, and then I have a Master's of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering from Prairie View A&M University in Northern Houston, Texas. Engineering, product design, product management, project management. But I prefer to look at myself as a critical thinker. So today we're going to get into it, the project management for beginners. And as I share my screen,
Okay. All right. We're going to go through outlines such as what is project management? Sorry. Why is project management important? The tools and techniques of project management, defining the scope and objectives, creating a project plan, managing teams and communication, risk management, project monitoring and control, and project closure. Project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to effectively complete projects. It involves planning, organizing, and monitoring and controlling all aspects of a project from start to finish. The goal of the project is, sorry, going a little too fast on the slide. So, the goal, the goal is to deliver projects on time within the budget according to the specific requirements. Why is project management so important? It's important because of efficiency. You want to be able to efficiently deliver on projects, which regards to the time, the quality of the project, and you want to be lean. You want to efficiently manage the resources. It's also important because as Powell talked about the performing team, you need team collaboration. You need effective communication horizontally and vertically. You need to manage your risk and minimize it as much as possible. You need to enhance productivity and make sure that the scope of the project is delivered on time and within the necessary cost or budget boundaries. And you want to be able to meet the stakeholder expectations. Okay. There's a cycle or a life cycle for managing a project. You initially charter or you initiate the project. You go through the planning phase of the project. You go through the execution phase. You optimize what we call monitoring and control. You try to optimize what the execution of the project is at that phase to improve it, to see how best you can try to make it better, and then you close up the project. There are numerous management tools and techniques available to help plan and execute and monitor projects effectively. One of them is utilizes a work breakdown structure. A work breakdown structure, and I'll give some easy examples. A work breakdown structure is basically dividing the project into smaller, manageable tasks. If you are building a house, case in point, right? You will have to break that project into different tasks. You're going to have the electrical side of the work, the internal work. You're going to have maybe the fitting of the HVAC, meaning the heating and ventilation systems. You're going to have the laying of electrical cables and wires. You're going to have the installation of appliances. You're also going to have the laying of the foundation. You're going to have the external work for the masonry. You're going to have these different defined tasks that are broken down across cross-functional phases. You have the mechanical, you have the electrical, you have the masonry, and so on and so forth. Another tool and technique that can be utilized is a Gantt chart. A Gantt chart is basically a visual tool that allows you to manage schedule and timelines. It allows you to be able to, okay, this task or this phase of the project has to be from this time to this time, and a lot of it is it's more complex than that. It could be task dependent. One timeline may be dependent on the completion of another timeline. In some cases, two timelines could be simultaneous, could actually go on at the same time, or could overlap. So there's a lot of instances in which you can use. Then there's the software. There's different softwares. There's Oracle Primavera software. You can even use spreadsheets. You can use spreadsheets to create Gantt charts. You can use spreadsheets to do RACI diagrams. RACI means responsible, accountable, consult, and inform. There's some people in the project that you would consult with, subject matter experts. There's some people that you have to inform, some stakeholders. There's some people who are accountable for a certain set of tasks. And there are some people with regard to management that have to be responsible for a certain set of tasks. It basically gives you a centralized platform, to be able to manage all aspects of the project. You need communication tools as well. Tools that allow you to effectively execute and monitor your project. A lot of those tools, especially communication tools, allow you to facilitate collaboration and share information amongst team members. Yes, this is very important. Risk management is a key aspect of project management. You can identify potential risks at the beginning of the project, and you can identify the risks throughout the entire phase of the project. Because you never know, you may have some potential risks that could impact all three sides of that project triangle, be it the scope, the cost, or the resources associated with that project. So you want to be able to identify risks, control risks. There's another tool called the risk priority, RPN, risk priority numbers, which is also a risk management tool where you identify the most impactful risks that gets the highest score, and that's the risks that you focus on. You focus on the highest scoring risks all the way down to the lowest scoring risk as you move forward. Okay, these are just going over some of the aspects of the project management triangle, which is scope, cost, schedule, and there's a fourth side of it, really. That's inside the triangle, which is the quality. All three aspects of this project management triangle affect one another. If case in point, we're looking at the scope now. If you have a scope, let's say you want to, what example can I use? Let's say you want to build a 12 megawatt solar farm, right? You want to put 12,000 kilowatts of solar panels, and you want to be able to store and invert the power required. That scope of a project, you're going to have to think about the time. If the scope goes down, if you have to reduce the scope, something else based on budget, cost. It could be that you want to get 12 megawatts worth of solar, but you don't have enough money or resources to be able to accomplish that. So that scope will change, And if the scope gets bigger, and maybe it's a time-critical project, then sometimes the scope has to be adjusted, or one of those sites have to be adjusted to be able to meet that. Okay. This is important in any project or program that one must undertake. It's an acronym called SMART, S-M-A-R-T. SMART means specific. You should be able to get specifications of the project. You should be able to measure, measurable. A means it should be achievable. R could mean relevant, R could mean realistic. T means time bound. So these are 5 key considerations that everyone must utilize when you want to undertake on any project, from a small to a huge project. You must be able to be specified, measure, achieve, make sure that the things you want to achieve are relevant within that time constraint. So the project plan. The project plan has key components to it. The scope statement, you have to define the boundaries and the scope. You have to be able to manage that scope. You have to break that big scope into smaller manageable tasks. That involves the work breakdown structure. And then you have a task list where you identify all the tasks that are required to complete that project. You have a schedule, which is the timeline for completing each task. You have resources, people, equipment, materials that you assign each task, and you have a cost or a budget associated with completing that project. Some of these we've gone over: effective communication, collaboration, very essential for managing teams. You know, as I would go through what Powell says, in projects you go through that forming phase where you get to know people, but you're going to get to where there's hiccups in the project, where differences in ideas and views and personalities, even in temperaments, can possibly lead to that storming phase, that phase where you need to get that team together to be able to move forward with the project. So effective communication and collaboration, and putting differences aside and looking at the goal, having the same mission, is critical when trying to manage teams and the communication. Some of these will be through risk management. Key steps in risk management: identify the risk, potential risk. That's the first early part. Assess the impact of risk. How severe is the risk? Develop a plan to mitigate each risk. And you have to continuously monitor and update that risk plan that you've created as you go along in the project. Okay. Oh, sorry. So, sorry. I think I'm going in the other direction. Sorry. That's going back. Okay. Monitoring and controlling the project. Another name we use is optimizing a project. So when you're tracking a project, you're going to have potential deviations from the plan. So you must have some sort of control plan, corrective action that you need. When you're tracking certain tasks, let's say tasks don't meet the scope, quality, or the timeline, you can rescope. You can always look into the delays and the obstacles, and always reallocate, possibly reallocate resources so that you're staying within the financial constraint. you know, if a project, for example, if you need to meet a timeline, you need a milestone in the project, and you might have deviated, you know, you may not meet that milestone. You may have to assign more resources so that you can condense or compress the time required to meet that milestone. You know, let's say you're supposed to, you know, let's use the solar farm. You're supposed to lay and install and test 1 megawatt maybe of that 12 megawatt project. That each megawatt is a milestone, and you're not able to get to that milestone. You may have to either reassign some resources, put some people there, put some equipment there, assign some people, make some people do the testing, make some people, add more people to do the installation, so that, you know, you can hit that milestone, that target of 1 megawatt, if you're supposed to get to 12 megawatts or the solar power at a certain time, which is the stage where we have project closure. You know, before you can close the project, you have to complete all the tasks and meet all the deliverables. You have to make sure that all the stakeholders sign off on those deliverables and tasks. You also have to review the project to identify the lessons that you learn. Very, very important is documenting failures and successes in the project for future references. And after that, you can celebrate the project success with the team. Okay, so we're almost done. Key steps in the project closure: completing all the project tasks, having the stakeholders sign off, reviewing the project, looking at what went well and what possibly could have been improved, and identify the lessons learned. And these are the benefits of effective project closure. In increased efficiency, the team morale is improved, better risk management, and obviously enhanced knowledge sharing. So in conclusion, project management is a valuable skill that can be applied across various industries and endeavors. By following principles and practices outlined in this course, you will be very well equipped to navigate the complexities of project execution and achieve successful outcomes. And I want to say thank you to everybody. Okay, so I don't know, am I still, can you guys see me? Can everyone see me?
Right. Thank you so much, Tex.
Okay, so any questions related to this? This is project management for beginners. So. No questions, right?
Okay. Right. Thank you very much, Mr. or Engineer Tekena Abibo. Thank you so much, Dami, for your very informative presentation.
I have a question for Mr. Tekena, please.
Okay, we're going to be taking questions shortly. I just want to quickly thank them for delivering. So this time is we're approaching the session for question and answer. So we can proceed with your question.
So hi, Mr. Tekena. My name is Mosby Hart, and I want to know, in project management, how can we collect data? What methods can we collect data in project management? Thank you.
Yes, sir. It seems your mic is mute, sir.
So I was just asking,
Okay.
what data collection method can you recommend in project management? Thank you.
Yes, with regards to data collection, there's different ways to collect data. Obviously, through statistical tools, that's one way. You can documentation is another way. Using a database is another way to collect tools. To collect data, sorry. So you can even record. You can have the platform, the software, the Primavera software, and you can different softwares, even spreadsheets. That's one way to collect data. And organize the data in ways that it can make sense. Process documentation, a lot of documentation is very important. Videos, specification in terms of quantifying data. That's very important. Mosby, I'm sure you're familiar with risk assessment, risk priority number. That tool is it's used in some software. You can even use it in a spreadsheet, to assess risk. The team comes together and they identify potential risks, identify how severe those risks are, and how frequently those risks occur. That's one way. So there's different ways that you can collect data, but you must document data and statistical tools, like I said, spreadsheets are one way to be able to collect, to try to understand, the effectiveness of I don't know if that answers your question.
Right.
I'll speak.
All right, thank you so much, Tekena. Do we have any other questions? So we have some questions from the...
Mr. Paul, afternoon, evening, I don't know where you guys are, but this is Laduch, actually. I'm
Welcome, Laduch.
still at the office, so I wasn't able to let my questions across. But from what I understood from the engineer, my major concern about project management is always the risk management measurable. So the challenges, I know they're not the variables. So my question is, the challenge of risk management, what is your best approach when you're trying to get into a project? How do you advise the control to minimize the risk management? Because it tends to be part of the factor that extends not meeting your target and your time bound, like you said. So what do you advise? How do someone prepare themselves for the challenges of the risk they incorporate in the project?
Mr. Laduch.
If you understand what I'm trying to ask you. Yes.
Laduch, man. I'm fine. It's good to hear your voice. Along with you guys.
Yeah, same here.
So I mentioned one, risk priority number, but there's something called failure modes, FMEA, failure modes, effects, and analysis. There's a lot of, it could get very complicated. You can have a failure mode effects and analysis matrix. You can have a cause and effects matrix. You can have your risk priority numbers. That's 3: control, risk control, and risk assessment. Because the risk priority number initially will tell you the most severe risks. That's what you have to focus on. The highest rated risk priority number, that's the one that you have to focus on. There's a matrix, obviously. I know it's not shown in this slide because this is project management for beginners, but these are tools. Even the software, like the Oracle Primavera 6 has a software, part of the software that allows you to assess risks. And the risks are different. Risk could be time risk. It could be cost. You have a budget. You don't want to go outside your budget. It could be quality. That's the scope of the work. It could be that there's a potential failure somewhere, and you have to identify that. but it's a dynamic document. That's kind of what I'm saying. You could initially identify risks at the onset, and then as you're moving, new risks when you assess, you may find out that you have new risks, right? You may have set of risks that you didn't
Exactly. That was what I was, that's
picture
what I
at
was
the
pointing
beginning.
out. Yeah.
That comes out. So that's the control side.
Yeah.
That's monitoring and control. That's the I like the word optimize. So whenever so my experience, let me even use product design. Let's say project, right? You're creating a product. That's a project. That, at least in my background, I can explain that. When you're working on some products, you have your initial parameters, you have all these measurables, and when you start testing, conducting tests, or you put the product to test, you find out some new things. You find out some new things. So how do I put it? There's something, the equation, y is equal to f of x. Y is the output, the response that you want. The x's are the variables, the known variables, the things that you know that will change. But there's the unknown. There's that function of x, y is equal to function of x, plus unknown. Those unknowns, as you're working, that's the practicality. As you're going through that work, that product, you're designing the product, you're manufacturing, you will find out some things that will now be known. Those unknowns, when they become known, they now get factored in, they become new x's. Do you understand?
Beautiful. That's
They're
what
not, that's exactly what it is. So it's just, you have to monitor as you move forward, you identify new risks that you didn't know. You didn't factor in the initial risk plan. That goes back into that risk mitigation plan, and you tend to now control. It becomes a priority. If it's very severe, remember the severity of the risk, how frequently you find that risk in terms of the impact. That's the way they rate the risk priority number. That's how it's rated. So the risk, the severity of the risk, the impact of the risk, and the frequency, how frequently that risk occurs. If you find out later, let's say mid-project, you're going to have another risk. You're going to have to change that original risk assessment. That risk mitigation plan has to change to factor in these new risks as it goes on. And then guess what? When you're done with the project, you document that now. That becomes solid knowledge that you can use in the next project.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Whatever you want to do. Okay, you're welcome.
Right. Thank you so much, Tex, for that elaborate explanation. So we have some questions in the chat. So the first one here is question for the first speaker. What are some common mistakes leaders make when trying to build a high-performing team, and how can they be avoided? The second one is how can I be a good team member in my organization? Right. So I'll start with the second one. So how can I be a good team member in my organization? So there's a popular saying that the best leaders most times are the best followers. So basically, what does that mean? You need to first of all be in a place of service. You need to serve. You need to follow. And the benefits of that is that you learn in the process. You learn from whoever you're following. You learn from your current leader. You learn from their strengths. You learn from their weaknesses. You learn from their mistakes as well. And if you follow me on Instagram at Powell, I do what they call Wise Words with Mr. Hart. And I try to elaborate this kind of issues there, where I say that mistakes are not, necessarily bad things, but it just depends on your perception of it. Do you remain there? Do you learn from it? If you learn from it, then it has turned to a learning curve. You now know what not to do next time. You now know what to do if that situation repeats itself. So hence, being in a position of service and following, learning, being an apprentice basically is one of the best way you can be a good team member. So you're going there with something to give first. So as you give in service, then you will learn. You get back and you learn more, and you grow up to become a good team member. Your team values you, your team feels your impact. And of course, I think that will, qualify you to be a good team member. So the next question says, common mistakes that leaders make in trying to build, high-performing teams. So in trying to build a high-performing team, when I was explaining earlier, I mentioned the Bell-Bain's theory that talks about trying to put the right people in the right position. So, but before we even do that, one of the major mistakes leaders make is I think it all boils down to communication. Because even in the Bible says, if you have a vision, you need to make it plain. So basically, you need to communicate your vision in a way that everyone that is with you understands what we're here to achieve. You understand? So you need to communicate it clearly. Let it be plain so that anyone that reads it or that listens to it can easily understand what you're saying and run with the vision you're trying to create. So that's one. Another area is that some leaders might choose the right people with the right skill, with the right talent, and even with the right attitude. But unfortunately, you see this thing called talent, it needs to be nurtured. So sometimes you need a mentor. So your leader at that point, or the head of your group or your team, can be a mentor at that point and help you nurture your talent, manage your talent. Because whatever talent that is not nurtured, that is not worked upon, they say it disappears to oblivion. So that is why a leader needs to be there to help make sure that his followers are fully motivated and fully developing whatever they have to offer to the team. So sometimes some leaders get, they get it wrong in that regard. And also, finally, some leaders choose people, team members, sometimes out of sentiments. You understand? In leadership, when you're trying to build a high-performing team, you need to choose those that can deliver, those that can achieve results, those that know what we have set out to do, those that understand the vision. So that is my take on that. Having said that, folks, I think that's the last question we have. If there's any other one, you can signify before we finally bring this program to a close. So in the absence of questions, I would like to tell you a little bit about Brickhills because we didn't have the opportunity to do that. But now that we have enough people in the house, we can get on with it. So Brickhills Consulting is a management consulting, team of people who are set out to, shed more light in this part of the world and globally, in different diverse areas, from along the lines of management, information technology, finance, oil and gas, technical services, trade unionism in whatever, level. We are there to offer you those services and illuminate further on the importance of these skills in such a time as this. And we're very conscious of the time we're in, and we are set out to furnish those who are interested with the necessary skills to help maneuver and meander through these changing times. So that is what we do. And of course, to keep yourself updated, if you want to know more about what we're doing or what's going to be coming up soon, you can always, reach us on our website. Our website is www.brickshillconsulting.com, www.brickshillconsulting.com. You can follow us on Instagram as well. I think it's at Brickhill Consulting, and LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you go on social media, you can find us. And we'll really love to hear from you. And having said that, folks, I hope you've had an illuminating time. You've had an interesting time. I hope you've been able to learn one or two things. And from time to time, we'll continue to do stuff like this. So we'll keep you informed so you can always join us. And above all, we look forward to seeing you again soon. So on that note, have a pleasant evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.